Symphonic metal is a heavy metal subgenre used to describe bands that make significant use of symphonic and classical music elements and fuse them with the heavy, technical, melodic, and speed-driven aesthetics of metal. Although this subgenre has been around for the better part of 30 years and has seen a plethora of bands come and go, none have had the lasting impact or influence as the band that started it all, Finland's very own Nightwish. Arguably the first band to employ this format, they became the inspiration for dozens of bands of the next generation and now the generation after them. Trailing just behind fellow Finnish natives and progressive power metal godfathers Stratovarius, Nightwish have become one of the best-selling metal bands in Finnish history and are the founders of what would come to be known as symphonic metal. Formed by a group of classmates at a music university in Kitty, Finland in 1996, Nightwish was initially the brainchild of musician and songwriter Tuomas Holopainen, who at the time was the keyboardist for black metal band Darkwood's My Betrothed. After recruiting fellow classmates Tarja Turunen on vocals and Empu Vuoren on guitar, the group released their first album, Angels Fall First, in 1997, which was more of an acoustic rock project. It wouldn't be until the following year that they would truly reach their full potential on 1998's Oceanborn and its follow-up record, which we're here to discuss today, 2000's Wishmaster. This incarnation of Nightwish, considered their classic lineup, consisted of Tuomas Holopainen as main songwriter, producer, and keyboardist, Sami Vanska on bass, Jukka Nevalainen on drums, and Tarja Turunen on vocals. This lineup would remain mostly unchanged during the writing and recording of their first 5 albums, with the exception of bass personnel, as Vanska would leave the band after this record and be replaced by Marko Hetela of Finnish metal band Taro, and would remain in that position until he departed the band in 2021. In this band's nearly 30 years of existence, this is by far my favorite album from them. This and the previous album, Oceanborn, are 2 of my favorite rock and metal albums ever and are definitely in my overall top 10. How does this album hold up 23 years after its initial release? Well, here's my opinion, as we begin our review of Nightwish's symphonic power metal masterpiece, Wishmaster. This album consists of 11 songs. The first one is called She Is My Sin. Now you're instantly overwhelmed with instrumental bombast as soon as the song starts, with the guitar, drums, and keys all striking simultaneously before sliding into some excellent guitar work throughout by Empu. Jukka gives the drums a nice swing while maintaining pace with the other instruments. Vanska does his part on bass, and Tarja's operatic voice serenades with a sense of urgency, drowned in seeping melancholic desire, fully expressed by her changes in cadence, and potent lines like, "In a meadow of sinful thoughts, every flower's a perfect one." Tuomas adds a nice texture to the song with his keys, creating an underlying foundation for everything to layer on top of. I've always respected the hell out of this band's musicianship, but also Tuomas's incredible songwriting abilities. This is Nightwish at their absolute best, when Warren's melodic guitar work chugs and gallops alongside Tarja's angelic voice. It's hard not to picture a pack of wolves running along the snow-covered plains by moonlight. This is an outstanding way to start the album. I give it a full 10 out of 10. The next song is called The KINSLAYER. The momentum continues on from the last song without missing a beat. Tuomas and Jukka come in with a blistering strike of keys and drums, then Empu joins in with his guitar riffs, bringing that sinister element to the mix. I really love the musicianship and song structure here. The one issue I do have, however, is Tarja's delivery during certain parts. There are portions where she sounds really, really good, specifically from the 225 to 330 mark, but then there are other times where the vocal techniques she employs are not as pleasing to my ears. I understand this is how Tuomas intended for it to sound when he wrote it, and there's nothing wrong with the quality of Tarja's voice at all. It's just the way certain parts are written and performed that I feel could have been executed differently. Overall, the one issue doesn't take away from the overall quality of the song as a whole. I would suggest still give it a listen. I give this one an 8 out of 10. The next song that we have is called Come Cover Me. This was the specific song that really got me into this band. From the second the song starts, you're completely drawn into another world. Thomas sets the stage, lacing the atmosphere with his hauntingly beautiful melody. The man has made it no secret that he, like myself, is a huge fan of classic Disney film scores, and those influences are prevalent all throughout the sonics of this album, the album before this, and the album after this. This was during the era of Nightwish, where there was an unmistakable aura of magic and majesty inherent to their songwriting and playing, something that would continue to wither away with each following album after their next one. This song makes you feel like you're running away from Maleficent through the dark woods of the Middle Ages while being serenaded by a siren of destruction. Empu's guitar work and Thomas' keys really make this song stand out, and Tarja's voice has you hanging on to every word as you're led down a dark path of wonder and bewilderment. Overall, a very strong song here, and it's my second favorite on this album. I give it a full 10 out of 10. The next song is called Wanderlust. The keys initially take the lead here, with the guitars following closely alongside, and really shines during the chorus, and especially during the later breakdown where the heaviness really cuts through. Tarja's voice sounds great here, with a wonderful cadence and delivery. The song invokes strong images of Beauty and the Beast. Like I said before, there are obvious Disney influences sprinkled throughout this album sonically. Another really good song here. I give this one a 9 out of 10. The next song is called Two for Tragedy. Not necessarily a ballad. Well, maybe it is, but a very, very morbid one at that. This is what I would imagine a peaceful death would feel like. Reflective, introspective, melancholic, and bittersweet, all at once while easing into transcendence. This song will definitely come across as severely depressing for some, but if you're the type of person who can spot the silver lining in the darkest of clouds, then you may enjoy this one as I do. Another good song here. I give this one a 7 out of 10. The next song is the title track, Wishmaster. This song is, unfortunately, the first real low point of this album for me. I don't want to say it's a bad song outright. There's actually a really cool part with Empu's galloping guitar riffs, followed by a really good vocal section from Tarja from the 220 to 340 mark. But other than that, this song comes off as generic and bland, in my opinion. The song structure and creative choices made pertaining to vocal cadence, delivery, and presentation are nothing to call home about. Same critique applies for the instrumentation here for the most part, barring the one section I mentioned earlier. Some people may enjoy this, so take a listen if you're curious, but in my humble opinion, there's nothing to really admire here, and this entry has left no lasting impact or influence on me. I give it a 1 out of 10. The next song is called Bear Grace Misery. This is another one of my favorites on this album. I actually named one of my instrumental hip-hop albums after this song. You start with a hi-hat count in from Yuka, followed by a drum roll, which quickly segues into the guitar and keys. Tarja's voice sounds absolutely wonderful here, and Empu's guitar work is really melodic and heavy throughout. Yuka keeps a nice pace with the drums, and Vanska, who I haven't mentioned too often up to this point in this review, really shines here in my opinion, with his bass lines really cutting through the mix and providing a hefty bottom to all the bombastic work being layered on the surface. Songs in this style have always been my favorite from this band, which is particularly why this album and its predecessor, Oceanborn, are my favorites in their entire discography. During this period in their career, they had more songs that were written and played in this style, which is more akin to symphonic power metal than just normal symphonic metal. That's not to say there isn't naturally some overlap between the two subgenres, as there always has been, but the emphasis on speed, melody, technicality, and a heavy prevalence of the guitar in the songwriting and performance is closer to what would be considered power metal, while the contributions of Thomas' keys and Tarja's female operatic vocals are staples of what would be called symphonic metal. This was during the period when Stratovarius, the most successful Finnish power metal band of all time, still had a profound influence on their music, which began with their prior album, Oceanborn, and would end with their next album, Century Child. This is a standout track for this album. I give it a full 10 out of 10. The next song is called CROWNLESS. If you weren't already, this song will certainly wake you the fuck up. The erratic melody of Thomas' keys and Warren's guitar heat up with a burning intensity, throwing you into an auditory crossfire of chaos. The guitar work is really strong here, and everyone else does their part to make this cut as strong as possible, including Tarja, who seamlessly croons across the instruments. Again, referring to what I had said before about Thomas' affinity for classic Disney scores, that admiration is fully exemplified and on display here. My favorite part is between the 112 and 137 mark, where the sound is encompassed by, I'm just going to say it, magic. Magic and majesty. There's no other way to describe it. The influence of Robert and Richard Sherman and Alan Menken and Howard Ashman are certainly felt here in spirit. Now I know this may seem like an odd comparison since it's a huge leap between Disney songwriters from 70 and 30 years ago and a symphonic power metal band like Nightwish, but when you appreciate and listen to as much diverse music for as long as I have, comparisons like this just come naturally. For me, the images that come to mind are those of Snow White running through the Forest of Horrors early in the film's runtime, that of Princess Serenity unveiling her true form in Sailor Moon, and Koga running with his wolf pack towards Naraku in Inuyasha. This song will take you on a mesmerizing evangelical journey from start to finish. I give it a confident 10 out of 10. Coming off the adrenaline rush of the previous song, we've now reached the highest point of the entire album, as well as my absolute favorite song from this band, Deep, Silent, Complete. The celestial sound of Tarja's voice immediately pulls you in. It starts slow with the first few bars of her voice over Thomas' lush keys, then it just drops into the bombast of the instruments. It's like seeing the Flash and Superman during that scene of their iconic race, taking off with a high-octane jolt, guided by Empu's singing guitar work. As with several songs on this album, the imagery that comes to mind is a mix of classic Disney and Hayao Miyazaki's work at Studio Ghibli. I always see a guitar player in my mind, walking to the edge of Pride Rock from The Lion King, hair blowing in the wind, as the guitar melody sings an ultra-melodic hymn in synchronicity with the morning sunrise at the break of dawn. Try not to see that soaring eagle from the Rescuers Down Under while listening to this. It's impossible. This is another one of their songs that I've sampled before in my hip-hop production, amongst several of their other classics. I give this song a heavy and unwavering 10 out of 10. The next song is called Dead Boy's Poem. If you thought Two for Tragedy was depressing, this is pretty much a sequel to that one in feel. There is, however, a bit more instrumental work on this one. It has sections where it can get very heavy, but then easily transitions back into the more somber parts, and at the 3:20 to 3:45 mark, we have a nice guitar solo from Warden. Thomas perfectly textures everything with his keys, and Tarja perfectly sells the premise of all this with her emotion-filled delivery on vocals. The morose factor is upped a couple of notches by the eerie vocal passages from a child that sounds like a prepubescent Harry Potter. This is an okay entry to this album. Nothing really bad about it, but at the same time, there's nothing really memorable here either, at least in my opinion. If you're into the macabre just for the macabre's sake, then maybe you'll enjoy this, but I need some more speed, heft, and melody than what this provides. I give it a 5 out of 10. This brings us to the final song of the album, titled FANTASMIC. With all the previous talk about Disney's influence on this record, it's only fitting that the last entry to this album is a direct love letter to the studio itself. This song was a direct homage to Walt Disney and his original crew of animators, dubbed the 9 Old Men, who made prominent films from Snow White to Sleeping Beauty from 1937 to 1959, and the Renaissance-era animators from 1989 to 1999 who created classics such as The Little Mermaid, and ended with Tarzan. clocking in at nearly 8.5 minutes. There's a whole lot of variation going on here. Bombastic doesn't even begin to describe the grandiosity of this song's scope. For the first minute and a half, the dark-sounding piano brings to mind every nefarious Disney villain in history, scheming or executing every sinister plan they've ever concocted. Now, although I applaud everyone's efforts here, especially Thomas, as I personally hold those two eras of Disney animators and Walt himself in the highest regard as well, I don't find this a particularly strong way to end this album. And despite the song specifically being the one that the band dedicates directly to Disney, it just falls flat for me. Had this song been placed a bit earlier on in the runtime, it would have been a tad bit better, but as a swan song to an album of this caliber, it's ultimately a massive letdown to me. Not that the song's not energetic, it definitely fits the energy levels of other parts of the album, other songs and such, but I don't know, this one just didn't connect with me. I feel the songwriting and the arrangements weren't as well executed as earlier songs. It's a, like I said, it's a letdown. I don't know, some people may enjoy it. Give it a listen if it's your first time listening to the album, but after you hear it once, you'll pretty much know if you want to hear it again or not. Not a terrible song, but a very bland and uninspired one in my opinion. I give this song a 4 out of 10. Summarize. In the nearly 30 years of this band's existence, this is by far their greatest record in their entire discography, in my opinion. But I dare say a lot of people would probably agree with me. The Oceanborn album, the Wishmaster album, and the Century Child album are considered 3 of Nightwish's best albums. Some people might tag on Once to that, and that's a really good album too. It was their last with this lineup, and prominently the last with Tarja on vocals, which made a big difference going forward. However, that album still, it's not the same as these 3. You could see that it was kind of a transition album, but I digress. Overall, I would highly suggest this. It's a strong, strong album. For those who are into metal, maybe want to get into metal, but want something more melodic than what the United States offers. If you like opera, if you like classical music, these are all demographics that this type of music and this album and this band would be a perfect fit for. It's highly suggested, A++ album, and other than a few pitfalls here and there, I give this a 8.5 out of 10. I'd like to thank my editor, who, without his help, I couldn't make these videos happen. Thank you for helping me with this, and I hope to be working with you for a long time to come. And to all my subscribers and everyone who's listening, even if you're just here for the first time, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope maybe you got something out of it. And most importantly, I hope that maybe if you've never listened to this type of music before, maybe you may be interested, or I may have made some of you interested in getting a little bit outside your comfort zone and seeing if you may enjoy some other genres of music. You never know. Everybody's got to like more than one. Okay, thank you everyone, and until the next review, everyone take care.